Hello everyone and welcome to the latest in the series of TCCA Critical Update webinars. My name's Tony Gray and I'm Chief Executive of TCCA, the global representative body and advocate for open standards for the critical communication sector. Today's webinar will provide updates from national authorities currently planning and implementing migration of their critical communication services from existing TETRA networks to critical broadband 4G and 5G systems. We'll have presentations from representatives of the critical network operators in the UK, Denmark, Finland, Sweden and Norway. And we have attendees from around the world, so we're looking forward to an informative and beneficial experience for everyone. Please submit any questions you may have during the course of the webinar using the questions pane on the right of your screen. If you're on a mobile phone, this appears at the bottom of the screen. If there's time immediately after the presentations, your presenters will answer as many as possible. And if there are any that don't get addressed during the webinar, they'll be responded to afterwards. The presenters' slides will be available after the event, and there'll be a recording of the webinar available online, as well as a document containing all the questions and answers. So now I'm pleased to welcome your presenters for today, starting with Steve Watson from the UK Home Office Emergency Services Mobile Communications Programme. Steve, over to you.
Thanks, Tony. Hopefully everyone can hear us nice and clearly. As Tony said, it's an update for you on where we've got to in the UK. So hopefully you find that interesting. And of course, I'm assuming that most of you are familiar with what we're trying to do, which is replace airwave with a 4G LTE solution called the Emergency Services Network, ESN. Relatively short period to speak to you today, so we'll try and crack on through the slides to give you lots of time to ask questions. First part I want to talk about is Esn Direct, and we have two flavors of Direct. Esn Direct 1, which has been out with use with some of our user organizations for a while now, and that's gives them for the first time push to talk with priority and preemption on the live ESN network. That was using the first generation of ruggedized smartphone from Samsung, and it's been really invaluable to us in providing feedback on how the system behaves, what the coverage looks like, how some of the products work, in particular, for example, around the remote speaker mic and how it interacts with the Samsung rugged device. The users that have really taken this forward are immigration enforcement, and you'll see a picture of some of their people on the screen at the back there. And they've been using that in live low-risk operations, so across 3 different areas in the UK. We're now moving on, and this week Esn Direct 2 starts operational use or testing with Merseyside Fire and Rescue Service, and this starts to build on the functionality that was delivered in Direct 1. Again, using the live network. It's now moved on to use the latest version of the Samsung ruggedized device, the X-Cover Field Pro. Got preemption still, priority of course. What's been added in, we now have interworking so that we can have a mixed talk group, devices on airwave and devices on ESN. Also got ambient and discrete listening, more mobile device management's in. So for us, this is a really big step forward, and we have quite a number of other organizations that we're looking to bring onto Direct 2. Most of them will be using it for really for trialing, for getting familiar with what its capabilities are, but there are a few that will start to use it operationally. So we're working with a number of other organizations, and hopefully we'll have at least one police force up and able to use it before Christmas, although, as I say, don't expect them to be using it operationally. Alongside Direct, we have Connect, and Connect has been available for some time now, and this is a data product. The City of Durham and Darlington Fire and Rescue Service were the first organisation to take it, and it's proving really popular with fire and rescue services across the UK. They're using it for a variety of reasons, and obviously it's really there to provide prioritised data across a secure connection. We have a number of devices, whether they are data modems or laptops, that have been through our accreditation process and that work using Connect. And as I say, there's a queue of about 12 or 13 FRSs waiting to come on board to take that. And one of the most encouraging things is that we are seeing them already starting to innovate around what they could use Connect for. So more than just talking or transmitting data from their back office systems into the appliance, we're starting to see other uses of that, which is a really big sort of step change for us. So that's a really major activity. Moving on again, control rooms and interworking. An awful lot of effort going into this. Neither of those direct releases has control room working built into it, but that will arrive in Prime, which is due middle of next year. And in order to do that, we have been working with all of the ICS suppliers in the UK to get them ready. We have a testing program, and we've already seen all of those, or nearly all of those suppliers, test in against Direct 2. We have made calls backwards and forwards across that in the test environments, including the test facility at Rugby that Motorola provide. Alongside that, in order to get them ready, the links between the Motorola data center and the control rooms, we've deployed somewhere in the region of 120 of those, and we're now putting in place a managed firewall system across those. So that all uses, the ICS suppliers are using the 3GPP standard interface to communicate, and that's the bulk of where their work is going at the moment. So quite a big step there. Moving very quickly on coverage, you can see from the maps on the left how quickly the coverage has grown across the UK. That's being provided by EE. There's some big numbers on there, 522 new sites built. They've still got about 160 left to do. They've upgraded just shy of 23,000 sites. And there are a number of other areas, extended area services, which I've certainly spoken about lots in the past. These are the areas in the country that the commercial EE network doesn't reach. And we've now built 83 of those. I know it looks a tad odd that there's only one that's activated. That's just really a matter of us minimizing the costs that we incur once a site goes live. There's nothing strange about it other than that. And then we also have 59 out of 71 special solutions deployed. These were for major road and rail tunnels and a number of stations. There would be things like the Dartford Road Tunnel, the Severn Rail Tunnel, Merseyside Rail, which is underground. So that is also progressing well. So you can see that the coverage levels there. And we've done a lot of testing with the users in that space in order to let them assess what the coverage levels are like in their own area. They do that with one of our devices, logs it back into a central database, and then they can access that through a web portal. And a lot of the results are very positive. We're seeing better coverage than we had predicted, which is positive. There is always some gaps, but you would expect that with a radio system. ESN Air, this is the air-to-ground solution. used by air ambulances, police service, both Scotland and the UK, in England rather. This is a first. No one else has got a 4G system that's accredited. We've now completed a load of test flights looking at the propagation characteristics of what the coverage is like from a test site. We've now also, for the first time, made calls to and from a helicopter with prototype equipment on board. So that's a first for us, and that was just literally 2 weeks ago that we made those first calls. The audio quality was very good, so that was very pleasing, and we're working through all the accreditations that are required before we can start, or before the equipment is certified for use in a helicopter or aircraft. And finally, looking at the devices, you can see on the picture the remote speaker mic that's available either as Bluetooth connected or hardwired. It connects into the Samsung X-Cover Field Pro, which is available for our users. And then you can see on the right some of the devices I talked about being available for use in vehicles, or indeed in buildings if you want to do that. So to sort of sum up, because I'm very conscious of time, an awful lot of progress has been made in the last 6 to 8 months, I would say, and we are now starting to deploy solutions that the users can actually get their hands on and go out and use for real, which is a massive step forward for us. And hopefully we can continue with that momentum and deliver Prime mid next year, so that it can then go through its various phases of operational testing before the users start to transition for real across onto it. And at that point, I'll pause and hand over to Lena from Denmark, who's going to give you an update on where they've got to with their system. Lena.
Thank you very much, Steve. And as always, very interesting to hear from you. And it's so nice to hear that you have had such good progress during the last months. I will skip, go quickly onto the first slide with some with the Danish network. The next, please. The Danish network, the current one is based on Tetra. It's obligatory for the blue light forces to use it. And we are in a tender process which is delayed, unfortunately, but and we don't expect the new solution to be operational until the end of 2024. But until then, the current solution will remain unchanged. And in our tender process, it will be requirements with focus on functionality and main focus on the voice communication. It's just a very brief update on the current situation, and let's move on to something more interesting in this aspect. So please, Steve, please, the next slide, where we in parallel with our focusing on voice, we are looking into broadband in Denmark. What we see is, like I think everybody else is seeing, that the first responders use other digital tools increasingly. And therefore, we early 2019 got a political mandate to analyze how voice can be supplemented by other data types. We have organized the work as a project, and we are looking into and have already done some things on strategy roadmaps. There was once mentioned here with the specific focus on critical emergency communication. We have done some requests for information, and we'll probably do some more, but and we've also had some end users interviews and still in the progress with of learning from everything. So it's still in a very, very early stage in Denmark, and we don't expect any conclusions or any recommendations, but maybe preliminary ones in 2021. Sorry. So this is the situation current in Denmark, not that far, but we are a little ahead in other parts of the Kingdom of Denmark. So if you pass on to the next slide, we will. Next slide, please. Then we would look a bit further to the northwest, where we have a little part of the Kingdom of Denmark, the Faroe Islands, and where we actually have succeeded, at least almost succeeded, with implementing a whole new police radio system. The Faroe Islands has a much different infrastructure, and there's a lot of islets and islands and inlets, and there's a lot of tunnels because of all the water around it, and even 2 of them are under sea. And there's a much smaller population, as well as a smaller number of police officers. Then there's as many sheep as there is inhabitants, but that's another question. In this issue, Føroyatela won the contract in March 2019, and they deliver an end-to-end solution together with Ericsson, Genega, and we are expecting this new system to be in full service the last quarter, within the next few months here in 2020, with focus on there will be LTE. There will be no DMO solution included in this, or Pro-C as is the term in LTE world. It's currently used by 40 police officers, so almost half the force in the Faroe Islands of the police is now using it everyday service, while we are having the last adjustments made, and they are very, very happy with it. So the current the solution that is taking over was from the late 80s, so everything was an enormous improvement, but this is really an improvement, so they're very happy. A little facts on how the coverage is. That's in all settlements, more than 200 inhabitants in all tunnels. It's 96.5 outdoor and an uptime of 99.5, which is very satisfying for us. We have the contracts includes Sonem terminals for both handheld use and fixed use, and there on the side you can see some pictures of how we managed to fix it into the cars in a sort of crate solution. I promised that I would be very brief, so I'll just move on to the next slide, and that you see that this so far we have done some preliminary findings, and we're looking into this these challenging things that at the moment the device ecosystem is still developing fast, but it's still room for improvement. And there's the quality of some of the features in the LTE is still needs to develop to be fully satisfying. Interoperability becomes very essential in the next steps forward. We're a small country, we can't make this on our own. And in that part, the 3GPP standards plays a very significant role in the process and will be essential in the future requirements of the operators, I think. And therefore, it's also important that we have a continuous need for there's a continuous need for a very strong international cooperation. And unfortunately, we have this, which is the day's seminar is an example that we gathered around this important topic, and that was finding my last note, and I would be happy to pass the word on to my dear colleague from Finland, Antti. The floor is now yours.
Thank you, Line. I hope everyone can hear me, and thanks for keeping the time. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So Erillisverkot is the organization that I'm from. It's a government-owned company in Finland. It's a special purpose company, so our task is not to gain money, it is to offer high availability services. I'm talking about our future broadband service, Virve 2.0. Virve 1.0 is a Tetra-based system that has been running for 20 years now and is being used by fire and rescue, police, military, border guard, and so on, and also critical infrastructure like electric companies and so on. So next slide, please. So some key targets for our project. We are looking for a standard solution. So 3GPP recommendations is our guideline, and we see that it is very important from the telecommunications market point of view. Public safety is quite small player, small ecosystem. So I wish that we would all do standard solutions and not make the ecosystem even more fragmented. It's multi-agency communication, so we are utilizing communication between police and military and all the other agencies also. The technical interoperability that partly comes from the standardization, but there are also other aspects. So we are looking to be interoperable with, for example, neighboring countries and other countries also, with the legacy system Tetra, but also some other systems like ERC system. A multi-supplier ecosystem, so it's not one supplier for the entire package. It has been split or divided into parts, and we will have several different players in the field. A smooth migration, so we are not going to do it suddenly. We are preparing to spend 3 years for the migration from the old system to the new system, and also utilize cross communication between them. And of course, we want to enable new ways of working. So using broadband just to replace Tetra would be, well, not ideal. So we are also looking at what else can we offer than the current services. And continuous development coming from Tetra, which is well, quite stable. It doesn't change or evolve much anymore. We are going into a ecosystem, commercial based ecosystem that is really, really rapidly evolving. So we want to utilize that. Next slide. Our system is made from several parts. Of course, there is a mobile network. We have made an agreement for 4G, 5G, IoT, so we will have narrowband IoT and LTE-M both. We will not have a 3G because they are going to phase it out in next 3 years in Finland. SIM cards are important. They're important also from cybersecurity point of view. Devices are important. Some users may use off-the-shelf devices, but some users may want more ruggedized device, better battery, a Galileo PRS, the location information support, and device-to-device communication, which will not be offered from off-the-shelf devices, at least in the near future. Device management, we have to be able to remotely manage the devices, MC services, and I would like to point out that I am talking about 3GPP MCX services, so those have to be standard. Integrations with existing systems, which I already talked about, one of the most important being the ERC system, and we are looking at the new services. Voice recognition has been really on the table last few months, so our end users would like to be able to utilize voice recognition for transcribing, for example, recorded group communication. And connections to other mission critical networks, both nationally and internationally. Next slide, please. So this year, we have just finished the procurement for the radio access network that is from Elisa, national operator, and the core environment that is from Ericsson. So we had a national or public procurement according to EU Procurement Act, and those were the results. And we are aiming to be able to offer prioritized subscription about a year from now. So it will have quality, preemption, priority, and so on. Phase 2 will be mission critical services. We are going to start the procurement, I think, this week or next week, so it's really soon. And we have estimated that the procurement will take at least or more or less around a year, 1 year. Then we are going to make sure that it is good enough proof of concept projects with the end users, and the migration is to take place from 2022 onwards. And we should be in the new system, if we succeed, by the end of 25, and our end phase will not be a stable phase. What we will end up with is a place where we can have constant development of new services. Next slide, please. So this is the roadmap for our service. If you look at the bottom line, we are starting from current Virve that is based on Tetra technology, and we will end up with the broadband technology. And like I said, we will do it in a controlled manner and utilize, I would like to say that we will utilize a standard IWF interworking function, but it seems that we are so far ahead that it might not be ready yet and we have to do something else. So I just said that do everything according to the standards, but it seems that even us have to do it another way for the communication between old and new system. Technology, we will start with 4G. Once the integration to 4G is done, then we will take the QPP, quality, priority, and preemption into place and try that it works. For the radio access network and for the core services, we have bought, so we have a deal for 5G also. So once the operator is building 5G, we get to use it, and our core will support it. We will start with non-standalone solution, but we are hoping to end to a standalone 5G within the contract period of 10 years. We will add some hardening. So hardening is made out of battery resilience or power resilience. So new batteries, fuel cells, even diesel generators will be put into place as it is in the current Tetra. But because there is so much more base stations, we need to build more power resilience. We have to build coverage. Our Tetra geographical coverage is around 97%, and the commercial networks as they are in around 80%. So Elisa will build more coverage to their network. And it's really a not ideal business case for a commercial operator. Up north is not populated very densely. So I think there are parts where the average is 2 people per square kilometer, but we still need coverage there. Of course, we also need coverage in the eastern border. We have really long border with Russia, which is the longest Schengen border I think there is with Russia. And services, first service will probably be just a broadband access. So it might be put into a multi-channel router in a police car. Then we can put it in a computer or tablet, and then we will offer VoLTE, voice over LTE, and then it can go into a smartphone as they are. We are looking at robotics, which is the drone there, group voice communication, so PTT and mission critical push to talk is one of the first services that we are going to offer. Location information, we are going to go into Galileo PRS, look it up if you don't know what it is. Group video is something that is highly expected. The black glasses or shades are mixed reality, so augmented reality. That is one of the most common 5G use cases for public safety that I'm hearing from the field. Then there is massive connectivity, mission critical integrations, and we will end up with the white shades and virtual reality. So thank you. I think I'm just on time, and I will pass it on. Much passion from MSB and update from Sweden. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Antti. Mats Persson from Sweden. I'm representing the Swedish Civil Contingencies Agency, MSB. Next slide. Next slide. We are today running the nationwide ROCL system based on Tetra for the critical communication. And it can no longer meet the needs of the user requirement regarding the mobile data services. The Swedish government has therefore approved 2 assignments for the Swedish Civil Contingencies, MSB, which is the starting point for the work to develop and establish the ROCL Generation 2, ROCL G2. And with Oracle G2, we hope the user should be able to take the advantage of the opportunities that the technology development provides regarding mobile data services. Next slide. The first assignment is to procure and provide services for mobile data communication to the user of the existing Oracle system. And the next step is to investigate the overall need for a developed and secure communication system that can be replaced Oracle by using government-owned infrastructure and other resources. Next. And next. The assignment number 1, it includes to acquiring a core network with a government ownership, and the radio access network will be procured from one or more commercial operators. And the core network must have the capacity to be expanded and adapted for further development if the government in the next step decide to do so. Next slide, please. Timetable. We're working toward quite a tight timetable. We got the assignment in the end of June, and we have starting with the RFI process, and we have the dialogue meeting with the market players, and we will start procurement in Q4, hopefully in this year, and we will have a tender evaluation in the beginning of 2021, and hopefully we will have an agreement and can start the implementation in the end of 2021. And it's stated in the assignment that we will have the service launch of the service in the end of 2021 is some services, and no, in the end of the 2022, I mean, and then we will see what the government will decide in the future for the future development. It depends a little about the assignment number 2. Next slide, please. The summary of the first assignment. We will add mobile data service to Oracle to a dedicated core network, and that will also establish the control over the information assets. And we will meet the user organization needs and requirements for the mobile data communication. And our goal is to establish a multi-operated core network solution. But the current Tetra system will continue to be used for mission-critical verbal communication and crisis management and collaboration. That is what we will do in the first assignment. Next slide, please. The next step in the assignment, number 2, it is to analyze and submit proposal how the overall need of the for a developed and secure communication system for actors in the public service, security, and health and defense can best be met. How the Oracle G2 can use the government resources regarding infrastructure with state-owned companies, authorities, and public enterprises. We will have a dialogue and collaboration with the state infrastructure holders. For example, is the Swedish Transport Administration. We have the energy provider Vattenfall. We have the Swedish power grids. It's Svenska Kraftnät. And we will have also some dialogue with the existing operator of the Oracle, that is Terracom. Next slide, please. The assignment number 2. When we deliver the assignment number 2, we have to consider that the Rocket G2 must be able to live up to the very high requirements or even higher demands that are placed on Rocket today in terms of safety and security, robustness and availability. We have to consider that it should be adapted for the existing security situation in the world. And RG2 must ensure government control over traffic, data and other sensitive information. Next slide. And we have a lot of partial deliveries in the assignment. We will analyze the pros and cons of the Finnish solution in a Swedish context. We shall also propose key actors responsible for implementing the proposal. We will analyze, assess, and make suggestions on the need for frequencies, and that is mean that it's the future needs for 5G, 6G, and for a long time period. We will suggest if there are any needs for any more frequencies. Assess annual cost and propose financing model. We will also analyze the regulation and amendments required to implement the proposal. We will need some help. We already today know that we need some changes in the legislation and make some amendments. And we will also present an overall timetable for the implementation. That is some partial deliveries in the assignment. Next slide, please. Timetable is like the first assignment with even tighter schedule. So we're working working towards. And but in this, we got this assignment at the same time. It was the end of June, and we have starting to analyze with establish the dialogue meetings with the infrastructure holders, and we will finish this with the final report at in the beginning of the next year. In this, it seems that it's a very tight schedule, but we will use some core documents from prior investigations that we have made for 3 years ago, and we make some suggestions. But now we will update that investigation, how we can provide our users with broadband and broadband data and services. And that was my last slide, and I will pass on to Norway and Sigurd here.
Yes, thank you, Mats. I'll finish the briefings with some words from Norway. My name is Sigurd Heier, and it's my responsibility that Nødnett is operative every hour of the day. And I'm also responsible, of course, for further development of Nødnett and the future. Next slide, please. Next. Rome wasn't built in a day. Neither was Nødnett, and certainly not the Nødnett effect. And I'll talk a bit about the Nødnett effect. Before Nødnett, the different emergency actors had their separate communication systems and ways of handling emergencies. Today, we have a shared emergency communication network that is trusted among its users. Nødnett is crucial to establish shared situational awareness, information sharing, and collaboration across organizations and sectors in Norway. We experience that emergency actors trust the technology, the system, their education and training, and also each other. All these aspects must be prioritized in order to maintain well-functioning emergency communication. However, when planning, building and implementing Nødnett, collaboration was not the primary output, main goal, nor the user's explicit main need. This benefit developed through the process and became the most valued benefit of Nødnett. Next, please. We keep talking about the Nødnett effect, and you might have heard us define it before, and here's a reminder. There are 4 areas that are important to maintain the Nødnett effect in broadband systems. 1 is the culture and cooperation, 2, the technical infrastructure, 3, the regulations and guidelines in place, and 4, the user knowledge and the know-how they have embodied. Next, please. In Norway, we show a unique ability to cooperate during emergencies. Nødnett is imperative in situations that require shared situational awareness and cooperation. While the picture shows collaboration between blue light agencies, the Nødnett family is big, varied and inclusive. It's blue light agencies, of course, it's military and civil defense, it's public and private actors, it's non-governmental and governmental or other governmental organizations, it's volunteers, and it's also some businesses. The fact that all these resources can find each other's when needed and are able to create shared situational awareness and manage to cooperate when handling emergencies, that is the Nødnett effect. And this area entails user onboarding and development of user base, collaboration, society and culture, and also dugnad, which is a Norwegian community contract. Next, please. Often Nødnett is viewed solely as the technical infrastructure. This might be the main discourse at this date. And of course, coverage, redundancy, and the network's functionalities are the basis for even being able to speak about the Nødnett effect. And this technical infrastructure areas entails all the infrastructure, TETRA, the cross-border communications, redundancy, robustness, and coverage. However, this list has limited value if there are no talk groups, no capable of using the system, and no willingness to collaborate. Next, please. The third area includes the regulations, the guidelines, and contracts that are crucial in order to secure a shared system and a common idea of best practice. And some areas here are the contracts and agreements, the talk groups and fleet maps, the laws and regulations, and the guidelines given. Next, please. Nødnett wouldn't have had such broad value without the extensive knowledge sharing, the embodied know-how, the training and exercises across the country. The fourth area entails knowledge and skills, management, education and training, all the exercises, all the various areas, and also not to forget the leadership. Next, please. These four areas are mutual dependent in order for Nødnett to work the way we want and need it to. The success of Nødnett lies in the interface between these building blocks. We experience the Nødnett effect because of all these areas are in place and because they all have become a given in Norwegian emergency response and civil protection. These four areas, their separate contribution to the success of Nødnet, and the dependencies have to be maintained in the future Nødnet solution. Next, please. And what's our status on this topic? The Nødnet contract ends in 2026. Our concept study was handed in mid-June this year, and we are currently in the middle of a quality assurance process. Following this process, the Norwegian government will make a decision on concept. When this decision is made, we will know more about what tasks we are facing in the years to come. As we move towards the implementation of a new system and change of platform, it is a given that the continuation of the Nødnet effect is the main goal. Thus, the Nødnet effect has leveled up to become a premise as much as an effect. Looking forward, our main task will be threefold: to continue the close and valuable cooperation with the Nødnet users, to secure a system that meets the rising need for secure data communication. As we all know, data will be key as we work to provide advanced situational awareness. And three, maintain and develop the Nødnet effect in broadband systems. And of course, even though we look at the Nødnet effect as a domestic success story, a similar story can be told about what we are doing bilaterally and multilaterally. In the Nordic countries, we have connected our infrastructures. We write across border communication guidelines. We educate, we train and practice together. And we will happily cooperate with our Nordic neighbors, both in a structural level and also on the ground. These dynamics will also have to be maintained in the broadband systems. To sum up, our challenge lies in fulfilling the user's need through robust infrastructure, adapted systems, and transfer of new knowledge. The culture of cooperation and the user's willingness to collaborate are already in place and in their backbones. This is an advantage that will make sure we maintain the Nødnet effect also in the broadband systems. Thank you for your attention. Back to you, Tony or Steve.
Thank you very much, all of you, for those very comprehensive presentations and indeed for staying so well to time. It's now my pleasure to hand over to Nina Myhren, Deputy Head of Department at DSB in Norway and also a board member of TCCA, for a brief summary.
Thank you, Tony. If you visit TCCA's webpage, you can read the following. TCCA leads the global development and promotion of standardized critical communication solutions for professional users. We provide a forum for government, regulators, manufacturers, operators, end users, for any and every stakeholder in the critical communication sectors to discuss, debate, deliver, and evolve the market for the benefit of all. We are therefore very glad that Steve, Lene, Mats, Antti, and Sigurd could find time to share information and thoughts with members and friends of TCCA today. In all these countries, the users are still relying on their nationwide Tetra network for mission critical speech. I'm pleased to hear about the progress in UK, who as an early mover towards mission critical broadband has had a long journey. For the users to communicate and share information, the technologies, bits and pieces, infrastructure, communication platform, devices, software, and so forth also has to communicate. This demonstrates the importance of available standards. The increasing demand for critical mobile broadband services is also acknowledged in Sweden and Denmark, with Sweden a bit ahead, but they both have tasks ahead. And interesting is it that the Kingdom of Denmark have a live system, and actually they have their own sandbox up and running in the Faroe Islands. Those of you who have followed the progress of critical communication the last years know that Finland presented their strategy for mission critical broadband already several years ago. And I must say it's impressive to see how they are moving forward step by step, building mission critical broadband communication services for all end users in Finland. Norway, Sweden and Finland have implemented cross-border communications in their existing Tetra network. I think it will be interesting to see how they will solve this in new broadband system and how this will influence their rollout plan. And as Sigurd, who is my boss, pointed out, the technology and infrastructure is crucial, but it's not enough to achieve the collaboration and the interoperability between people. Culture and cooperation, regulations and guidelines, knowledge and know-how are equally important. And also in this field, I believe we will need to look into standardization and find best practice.
Closing, I'd like to take this opportunity to remind you all to register for Critical Communications Week, TCCA's online event for 2020, which takes place from the 2nd to the 6th of November. Also, please consider making an entry for the associated International Critical Communications Awards. Entries close on the 16th of October. You can find all the details and register for free at criticalcommunicationsweek, all one word, .com. Okay, so that brings us to the end of today's event. We hope you found the information valuable, and I'd like to thank our presenters once again on behalf of all of you as well as TCCA. If you have any comments or suggestions, please let us have your feedback afterwards. But for now, thanks again for attending. Goodbye, everyone, and stay safe and well.